Hey guys, Hawk and Carlton with Carlton Carnivores here again with another special plant to share with you guys. If you happen to see the last video that I posted about Dracunculus vulgaris, you might have heard me mention the corpse flowers, Amorphous. Most people are familiar with the biggest species, Amorphous titanum, the Titan arum, which is the largest unbranched flowering structure in the world. They can grow to 10 feet tall in some cases and nearly as wide, and famously whenever they bloom in botanic gardens, people go there to see if they really smell as bad as is claimed. Now today what I've got for you guys is not that species, but a very close relative in the same genus. This is Amorphous Henry Eye. I'll try and tilt it down for you guys to see the shape there a little bit, and you'll see photos posted through here as well as I describe the different structures. So this is a close relative of the Titan arum, but as you can see, it's a fair bit smaller. These guys mature when the tuber is maybe 3 or 4 inches across, as opposed to several feet across and a couple 100 pounds. These ones you can fit in a pot in your living room even, which is where this one has been growing for a couple years now. When they are in foliage growth, these tubers, small as they are, will produce a tree-like leaf that can grow upwards of 3 feet tall and nearly as wide. And the petiole, the long skinny section that holds up the leaflets, is colored in various shades of light and dark green, kind of mottled or spotted along its length. And then at the top, of course, kind of like the branches of the tree, the actual leaf blade is split into a bunch of little tiny leaflets that spread out like a tree canopy. This leaf, of course, is drawing in energy from the sun and mixing that with nutrients that are drawn in from the ground. These guys come from Taiwan, where the soil is fairly rich. Of course, it's a subtropical, tropical environment, so these guys are gathering nutrients from the fallen leaf litter within the forest. And eventually that leaf will die back, all of the energy goes into the tuber, and the tuber then stays dormant for several months during what is typically the dry season in that environment. Once the tuber is big enough, of course, then it will sometimes decide to, as you can see here, it will flower. So without any leaves being present, and in fact I can pull this straight up out of the pot that it's sitting in, without any roots present, it will send up a fully self-sufficient stalk that will develop then this little urn-shaped base to the spathe, which is a modified bract on the flower stalk, and then the spadix, which releases chemical attractants that bring in flies, carrion beetles, things like that. And different species of corpse flower often have very different odors. The Titan arum, of course, is famous for smelling like dead animals. This one, I don't think it's actually producing the full odor that it is capable of producing, but this species generally smells like a porta potty, basically. It smells like poop. So this one is not very strong at the moment, which is about the only reason why I am able to sit next to it this close. But I can still catch odors every now and then. It smells basically like several weeks old porta potty that someone hasn't quite finished cleaning out. That attracts, of course, various insects, and then down within that bulbous portion of the spathe, the actual flowers are hidden within. Again, this is not actually one flower, but a flower stalk, an inflorescence. All of the flowers, of which there can be hundreds, are actually tucked down within there. And in this photo, you can see both different kinds of flowers. At the very bottom, the ones that are active right now are the female flowers with the stigmas sticking out, the little gray nubs, and those are waiting for some sort of insect to bring in pollen from another plant to pollinate those. Above them, what will ripen in a couple of days are the male flowers, which will eventually release pollen. And so, by having the different flowers mature at different times, this ensures better that the species is more likely to cross-pollinate so that they don't inbreed. And of course, once this flower is pollinated, it will eventually start to kind of shrivel back. If it was actually successfully pollinated, those female flowers will begin to produce berries. And in this species, the maturing berries are actually this bright blue color. I don't have photos, unfortunately, but hopefully later in the year, if you watch my website, you might be able to see some of those images later on. Because while I am not able to cross this plant with anything right now, Amorphous Henry Eye is one of the odd species that is capable of setting seeds without any pollination. So even without doing anything to the flower, I may still get basically almost clonal berries and seeds from this that I can then sow and grow new plants out of. Once the seeds are sown, of course, they are one of the varieties that is not able to dry out. In order to germinate the seeds, the berry part actually has to either ferment or be peeled off, and then the seed has to be kept moist until it begins to germinate. And then it will often take several years from germination to get to flowering size. Now, if you're weird like me and you want to grow these guys, this is actually a great species to start off with, not only because it's small, but in general it's a fairly easy one to take care of. You want to have a pot maybe about a gallon size, maybe a bit larger. I'll actually be up potting this guy in a little bit so that he can grow out, get even bigger, and maybe set off several flowers within one pot. You want to fill that with a fairly loose, well-draining, but extremely rich composted soil. So mix like your standard garden soil with some sand or large perlite chunks, and then mix in there perhaps timed release pellets like Osmocote that will release nutrients all throughout the growing season for these guys. And every now and again you may want to also top it off with a bit of extra high nitrogen fertilizer to build up that tuber. Once it's getting mature, a little bit of phosphorus heavy fertilizer can help encourage a flower. And then you want to keep the soil, when it's growing, just barely moist. Or not just barely moist, you want to keep it fairly moist, sorry. And have that moist all throughout the time when the actual leaf is growing. Once the leaf dies back, you want to cut back basically all watering. These guys have been stored dry in my basement all winter long when they've been dormant. They don't need any water at all when they are in dormancy. Some people actually pull the tuber completely out of the pot and store it in like a paper bag or in dry vermiculite to keep it from rotting. Because if these guys are kept moist during their growing season, they rot quite easily. So that is all that I have for you guys this time. You'll want to keep an eye out. There's a possibility, if we're lucky, I may have a second species of corpse flower, or maybe even others, bloom later this year. So you'll want to keep an eye out for that. I may post another video. Until then, if you guys want to help support making more videos like this, please consider joining us at www.patreon.com/hcarlton. You can always find more information or contact me if you have questions. Either submit a comment down below or find me through the website, carltoncarnivores.com. There is a blog on there also where I will post informationals that you can read if you prefer that, about these different species as well as about the animals, of course. And then you can also find us on various social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Carlton Carnivores. So, if you have any questions, again, submit comments down below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm Hakan Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.